Thank you. Thank you, Jim, for that. Well, as you said, my name is Art Gilliland. I'll give you a brief history of my background just so you get more context and why they asked me to do this. It's probably the first security conference I've ever spoken at where I'm not going to say anything about security. So I'm a little uncomfortable, to be honest. But I started my security career actually on accident at a startup. I was the 10th employee of a company called IamLogic that was founded in Massachusetts. I spent 4.5 years at IamLogic, ultimately selling the company. I didn't sell it, my CEO sold it to Symantec. I came into Symantec and I thought I'd be there 6 months. And then back into the startup world, I ended up staying there for 6 years, ultimately running the information security business on the enterprise side. Then I took a 3-year detour to HP to run their enterprise security business. And then about 8-9 months ago, I joined Skyport as the CEO. And so when Jim and I were talking, he asked me to come and do a quick 10-minute speech. He said, I want you to talk about your career journey. And I thought to myself, there's going to be people in this audience that have had much more illustrious careers and more experience. He said, but no, I want you to talk about, in particular, what you learned in the transition from going from a tiny company to one of the largest companies in the world and then back into a tiny company, and share some of the insights, at least, that you got through that. So hopefully the things that I picked up along the way to try to figure out how are you successful in tiny companies, and then how can you take that experience and be successful in big companies, then back again. So that's the topic of it. So let's talk a little bit about what it's like to be in a company of 10 people. How many of you have worked for a company with less than 100 employees? Oh, everybody. Awesome. So I think what I took away, and I think one of my mentors told me, and this is going to sound crazy, although you guys have all worked in these kinds of companies, is he said, anything worth doing is worth doing badly. And I gave him that sort of sideways puppy dog look, and I thought, what is he talking about? And then he explained it a little better, and he said, look, when you're in a startup of 10 people, you have nothing. We have nothing done. There is nothing finished. And so you got to pick the 2 or 3 things that have to be an A+. You got to do those things well. And then any spare time you have, anything else you do is better than 0. Right? And so doing that, finally getting that brochure out, or finally doing that white paper, even if it's like a D+, it's better than nothing. And so getting that rapid speed of getting things out there, iterating as fast as possible was sort of the mantra that sort of stuck in my head. And so we were just cranking as fast as we can. You're doing as much as possible, trying to put some structure around the lack of anything. So it's sort of chaos, but there's nothing. And so you're sort of creating some structure there. And that was sort of built into you as a startup. And it was my first sort of real experience in a startup. And so you sort of ingrained that after 4 years of trying to live this thing and clawing your way and trying to get that first customer and then ultimately selling to Symantec. It's pretty ingrained in who you are and how you behave. And then I leave that environment where you're just trying to get things done as fast as possible and get going. How many people have worked in a company larger than 10,000 employees? Oh, you guys have my same exact career path here. Well, I'm going to ask the next one. We'll see it, and then the government people all say yes to this. But I think my experience at Symantec, and Symantec was about 18,000, 19,000 people when I got there, so a relatively mid-sized, large company. But I was sitting in the integration meeting, which was the sort of the first meeting we were having with, and I ran all of marketing and products for the small startup. And we were talking about how excited we were that we're going to ship our product and we're going to announce the product. We had spent the last 6-9 months getting ready for it. We were all prepared to launch it, and we're going to send the press release out at X date, which is like 2 weeks from now. And the company just said, no, you're not. I'm like, no. I mean, again, the puppy dog look and the crazy thing. And I think that sort of massive stop was something that was kind of a culture shock to us. And as a startup person in these companies, and I've since acquired quite a few companies, and I give a similar talk to the employees, is there is an emotional difference when you go into a big company, at least that I've experienced, and it's typified by another analogy, another story. At a little company, and at a IM Logic company, this is sort of ingrained into my head, was you think about what you're going to do for a day, and then you spend the next 4 days of the week actually getting it done. And you get it to the end of the Friday, and you finished it, and you feel awesome, and you're finished, right? But you've done it in the scale that you can do in 4 days. At a big company, you think about what you're going to do for a day, and then you spend 2 weeks telling everybody about it. And then the company spends 3 months doing it in 25 languages, globally all over the place, and really execute it. That takes a different kind of patience. But the outcome is so much more powerful. You just have to sort of focus on that last outcome. But when you're in that first meeting, when you're being told that press release can't go out for the thing you just spent 7, 8 months of your heart and soul building, it's very hard to personalize that and think about the long game. And so when I talk to folks coming into these big companies, there's a couple of mindset shifts that I think have to happen. And candidly, for 6 months, it was a struggle. And I almost blew myself up at Symantec. And I had a great and very successful 6-year career there. But when you fight against that machine and you just try to break the rules and get through it, you end up blowing yourself up. And ultimately, a lot of startup people blow themselves up because they can't make that transition. And there's a couple of mindset shifts. I think the first one is that mindset shift of think about it, talk about it, and then let the company do it, which was a big mindset shift, at least for me, that I had to embrace how powerful that is. The other thing that a lot of people complain about at big companies that I just never really felt it this way is politics. Everyone talks about politics. I hate politics. I can't work at a big company because there's too many politics. I never thought about it that way. I always thought about politics as just relationship management. Politics was go and meet all these people that actually have different jobs than you, that are going to take those 3 months and actually get it done globally, figure out what they want, and spend the time to get to know who they are and know them and be friends with them and help to align the objectives around the same thing. Now, when you are a startup guy and you want it done in 4 days, that work is politics. But when you're thinking about the long game and trying to get something done at a global scale in 25 languages all over the place, that's relationship management. And so helping people understand that and embrace it was something that was hard for me to get my hands around, but ultimately I think it's a really powerful thing. So understanding the long game and really thinking about that. The last piece that I sort of had to get my head around as a leader in a big company is in small companies, you need to iterate and move as fast as possible. And so you make a lot of mistakes. You decide and you go. And now that I'm back in a startup, I have to remember, stop analyzing stuff so much. Just decide and go. And one of the things that really struck me, because I started as the 10th person and then ultimately ran a team of 2,000 people at HP, was when you make a decision, 2,000 people start to do stuff. Stopping 2,000 people from doing stuff if you are wrong is really hard. Getting 2,000 people to start doing stuff is really hard. That's why you got to talk about it for 2.5 weeks first, maybe longer. But getting them to stop is almost impossible. And that sort of thoughtfulness about choices that you make at a big company was the other thing that took me a little while to learn, and I finally did, which is you can't just change your mind back and forth. You can't wing it to a decision like you can a little bit more in these small companies because there's a aircraft carrier that is moving, and if you change your mind, that thing is not turning around fast enough. And so that was the other thing. So look at the long game, really think about relationship management, and then the last piece was those analyze the decisions. So here now I've gone that, and I'm out of time, so I will wrap it up here quickly. Now I'm back in a small company. And so what are sort of the combinations of those two things that I'm trying to remember to do now that I'm here? I think this is somewhat true in both places, but I like this saying, and I heard it this morning at a CEO conference that I was attending, which is done is better than perfect. And I think that sort of decision-making to be done and move on is better than perfect. Yes, you want things to be as good as possible, but done is better than perfect, definitely in my world where we're still building infrastructure and building stuff. The other thing that is true and has been true, but is very difficult to implement, at least has been longer term for me, is hire carefully and fire fast. I've never made a HR decision too hastily and felt bad about it. I've always felt bad about the HR decisions to let somebody go that I took too long to do, because it hurt my whole team, it hurt the business long term. And so that was the other thing I would take forward. And then as part of the process to getting to decide that, one of the things at least that has worked really well for me personally is spend time being really cold-hearted about the decisions you have to make. Don't care about the people, don't care about the emotions involved. Think about the choices you have to make in a sort of isolated, cold-hearted way. Make the right decision for the group and for the company. And then step away from that and think about what is the kindest and best way I can implement this. And so that all the humans that are involved, even if it costs you more money, all the humans involved experience the right choice for the company in a way that is caring and meaningful. And I think taking that, because I had to make a lot of really hard decisions at HP when I was running big groups there, and Symantec, taking that kind of decision-making, I think, into small companies helps to build cultures that I want to be a part of. So thank you very much. Hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.